Hello and welcome to the JackCast, your Swansea City podcast. I'm Matt Rocco and I'm joined as ever by Guto and Steve Carroll. Afternoon, both.
Afternoon.
You're listening to this, you won't. This is the third time of trying this recording. The first time we had a bit of interference on the line. The second time, Guto muted Steve, so we were just going to have a chat between us while Steve was talking to himself.
Sorry again, Steve. Appalling behaviour. I know a lot of people would love to silence me, but you're the first person who's been able to.
Amazing. I'm not sure you managed it. Right, okay, let's go. We've got two games to analyse this week. Two away games. We're actually looking a little bit optimistically at them because they were two away games, and we've had a better run of form on the road than we have at the Liberty, which makes no sense considering there's no fans, but it shouldn't really make a difference, but it appears to have done it. Alas, we have pulled 2 points from those two games. We're going to analyse the most recent one first, Steve, which was the Bristol City game yesterday. A draw it was. Not always the most exciting games against Bristol City of recent times, and it threatened to go that way, but we did take the lead, and in the end it felt like a bit of a sucker punch, the manner in which we didn't see the game out.
Yeah, I mean, that's the major talking point of the game now, isn't it? I can't say we were playing brilliantly, but we were comfortable, really, weren't we? I didn't think the opposition were very good, which was a little bit surprising considering obviously they've had a very good start to the season, haven't they? But I think the way of looking at it would be before the game that I would have taken a draw, and I'm sure most people would have. But then when you get done by what looks like a very soft penalty to level the game up and cost us 2 points, then it's a bit tough to take, isn't it?
It is. As you just said, it's not always the most entertaining games between Swans and Bristol City, and the games themselves didn't really bring so many clear-cut chances, did it? The chances that did come didn't always fall to the right players, and there's question marks, I suppose, over the selection, if you like, that Cooper made, where he's left Gyökeres on the bench and played Ayew and Lowe up front, and neither of which are natural strikers. Now, we're yet to see the best of Gyökeres, I think that's fair to say. But do you think this is the shape that's going to get us more success than others at the moment?
I think the shape generally, yeah. I mean, he was a little bit limited by the fact that we didn't have obviously Morgan Gibbs-White available because he's injured, and Casey Palmer wasn't given his first start, obviously, because he's on loan from Bristol City. So that forced us to play three pretty samey, more defensive-minded central midfielders. But I don't think that necessarily hampered us too much. I think the main issue is just that we've got two strikers up front in Ayew and Jamal Lowe who aren't really out-and-out strikers. I think they're probably better players than Gyökeres, but are they necessarily the best suited to play that specific role? I don't think either of them are necessarily bad in that role, but there's no one there then to be that instinctive striker that's going to just hang around and look to poach goals. You haven't got a McBurney or a Brewster there who are just all about the goals, really, you know. So I think that's a problem that we've seen already this season, and it was again a little bit of a problem on Saturday.
It felt a little bit, Steve, particularly in the first half, that both sides were perhaps, I don't want to say scared, but quite content then. Look at the other side of the coin, quite content with the way the game was panning out, which was a bit of a drab affair. Nothing was really happening. And it felt at that point that maybe both teams would have said, yeah, okay, a point isn't the worst result on this. Did you get that feeling too?
Well, I got the feeling that was our attitude from the start, really. That you only got to look at the starting lineup to think that our attitude was we're happy with a point, because I think I famously tweeted out, obviously, that team screams goals, because you look at like Lowe and Ayew, might chip in with one, but I mean, Grimes never scores. Corey Smith's record of, I think at his previous clubs, he never scores. Fulton gets a handful a season maybe, so his record isn't too bad considering he's more of a defensive midfielder. But then you're looking at the defenders, I mean, they're not going to chip in either. So I think that team suggested we were more than happy with the draw, and then we were never going to force the issue, although our manager, for some strange reason, seemed to think that at 1-0 up, we were likely to go on and score a second, because I never ever got that feeling, to be honest. So yeah, I think we were happy with the draw, is the truth of it, or certainly happy enough not to force the issue. Anyway, we did have a couple of chances at the end, didn't we? But I can't say we were pushing to massively win the game after we'd scored anyway.
I can see that we were certainly happy, or I can feel like I can say this, that we were happy with the draw up until the point we scored, and then we felt like we should have gone on to win, and that's absolutely true. There is a long-running criticism of the way Swansea City play at the moment, which is the inability to attack teams when we have the lead. We seem to take the lead and then just defend, whether it's half hour left or 10 minutes left, doesn't matter, however long is left. We just seem to sit back and get deeper and deeper and deeper. The nice thing, you look at it sometimes, you think, oh yeah, when the opposition has to come out now and we can leave space for the counter-attack and we can pick them off, that doesn't seem to happen because we have no one in the opposition half and we have no one willing to commit to try and kill the game. Guto, it just seems to be a bit of a trend that's occurring where we take the lead and then it's all hands to the pump and trying to stop the opposition from scoring rather than keep giving them questions to answer at the back themselves.
I don't know why I thought this, but after we took the lead, and by the way, it was a really good goal, probably the best goal we've scored this season. I mean, the pass from Grimes into Roberts, who's picked up a really good position. His through ball is absolutely fantastic, and Lowe picks out a really good finish into the top corner. Fantastic goal. And afterwards, I was thinking, do you know what? This has put us in a really good position now. We can defend, but we were in a good position to break and get more goals against Bristol City as this game opens up. But then straight away from the kickoff, like Bristol City took the kickoff and we just kind of backed off into our own half, everybody behind the ball. And there was no one chasing that ball into the Bristol City half, really. I was thinking, oh, yeah, of course, we're going to do this now, aren't we? We're going to just sit back and try and protect the lead. And, we've got players who are good at doing that, don't get me wrong. But it's only a 1-0 lead. It's a very slender lead, and it only takes one slip, one refereeing decision to suddenly even things up again. And I just thought yesterday that game was perfectly set for us to be cautious and to sit back and try and protect the lead, but to keep that threat and to maintain more of a threat going forward. And I just think that there's no balance when we take the lead between trying to defend that lead and going to strengthen that lead. It's entirely about just holding on and seeing the game out. And there were more than 30 minutes to play yesterday after we took the lead. That's a long time to just sit back and allow the other team basically to have the ball and to just sit back and defend. I mean, if you take the lead the way we did in the final, like 5 minutes, I'd understand that a bit more. But a third of the game, you're just going to sit back and absorb pressure. You're asking for trouble, in my opinion, and it's something that happens time and time again. I just think the balance is off. We have to maintain more of a threat when we go to take the lead. Otherwise, we're just inviting pressure on ourselves.
I agree with you completely. I feel like sometimes our tactic, if we do take the lead, is let's not be silly now. Let's not concede straight after doing the hard work and scoring. But it gets us into a mentality. It gets us into a situation where we start defending and then the opposition come at us then and they start giving an extra man forward. And we can't, after the 5-10 minutes has gone, then we can't snap back, get the control of the ball back and push them away. And that's when we suddenly start playing the long balls into space rather than looking to pick out men of the same shirt, and then you're looking at then just trying to clear lines every time the ball comes in your half. Once you get into that situation, you need a break in play to restructure. We just don't seem to be able to give ourselves that opportunity, to kill the game, kill the pressure, just stop the ball for a few seconds, just so the team can get back into the right mental state and get back up the pitch. And at the moment, we just seem to back off and wait for the inevitable or the full-time whistle, whichever comes sooner. But as Guto said, Steve, we did take the lead, and it was a lovely goal. As Guto rightly said, it was probably our best work goal this season so far, and it always looks lovely when a left-footed shot going into the top corner looks lovely anyway, but from the acute angle, it looks really nice on the eye. It was nice to think at one point there that we would go on to win it because Bristol City offered very little. But as again, Guto correctly said, with a 1-goal lead, you leave yourselves open to anything that can happen in a football game, even some ridiculous refereeing decision, which is what we saw yesterday.
Yes, unfortunately. I mean, we know what referees are like, don't we? We can, we always feel probably down here that we are on the wrong end of all decisions, and we're not. Whether that's true or not is debatable. Probably a lot of clubs think that way, but we should really have avoided it by not being so cautious. I mean, get to allude to that. I mean, if you're winning very late on, inevitably you are going to start dropping deep. But when you've got the lead with 40 minutes to go, I mean, it's just too early, isn't it? You've got to. I can understand why you wouldn't go forward, maybe all guns blazing, but at the same time, you can't be thinking we've got to back off all the time, and that's what we did. And when that happens, sometimes you are putting yourself at risk a bit. It doesn't excuse the penalty, really, because there is nothing in it. Even their manager has admitted it, hasn't he, that he didn't think it was a penalty. So, you don't get that very often. So that says a lot. It's just incredibly soft. It's like, what is it? It's just coming together, maybe, slightly. But that's not a foul for me. I don't think it was. And, when the opposition manager even says that, then you really know you have been hard done by. So, and it's frustrating. It's not a happy hunting ground for us in general, Bristol City. I was thinking about it yesterday. I think I've been there 7 times, and in 5 of those games, we haven't scored. I know we've had a few draws there that have been 0-0, but, it's frustrating. That would have been a very good win, really, and you feel like it's been taken away from us. But we have to focus on maybe what we can do better, and we shouldn't be being so cautious early in the game, because when you do that, as I've said, you are asking for a little bit of trouble, and unfortunately it came our way with the aid of the referee, didn't it?
It did. Guto, I can't really think of. I mean, I can see why it's been given. I mean, it's not a penalty. Even like you say, even Bristol City have admitted as much. It's not a penalty. I can see why he's given it, because he's assumed that Roberts hasn't been fouled, and in his falling, he's brought down an opposition player in the box. So, but for me, it's one of those ones that 99 times out of 100, the ref says either a foul to the defending team or a coming together of 2 players play on. It's very, very rare that in a position where one player has fallen over and another player's tripped over him, that the ref penalises them. And if he does, to the extent where he would award a penalty, a free shot, a goal from 12 yards late on in the game, seems a massive, massive injustice. And the punishment doesn't fit the crime at all there for me.
No, I mean, I don't think it was a foul on Robert. I just think Connor slipped. I mean, he gets done by the movement of the player and trips over, and then he's in the player's way and he falls over. I think by the letter of the law, you could say that you can find a way of saying by the letter of the law that is a foul, because there's nothing in the laws that say accidentally impeding a player is fined. But like Steve said, I mean, 99 times out of 100, a ref is going to see that for what it is. It's a slip which results in a coming together, and most of the time a referee isn't going to give a penalty for that. And that's the frustrating thing about it. It is one of those, just, it's a total freak incident as far as I'm concerned. And it's one that you very rarely see given, and it's given Bristol City a point which I don't think they really deserved at that point. They had offered absolutely nothing after falling behind. And for all we've complained about the Swans dropping deep and inviting pressure, actually Bristol City didn't do anything from that point. They didn't take advantage of that. They didn't stretch us. They never ever seemed to put us under any kind of pressure. And we looked reasonably comfortable defending our lead. And had it not been for that referee's decision, then I'm pretty confident that, again, we would have held out for the lead. It's just one of those really, really frustrating moments. It really is.
It is. The game finished 1-1. Let's look at a positive then, which I'll pull out as Ryan Bennett, the new centre half, which I think has already in a short time here shown the maturity and leadership needed from a centre half in such a young back line as well. including the goalkeeper, of course. So he needed someone there with, an experienced head on his shoulders, and that's what he's provided so far for me. I think he's been an absolute breath of fresh air in there. Obviously, always going to miss the talent of Joe Rodon, but this, as I hoped he'd be when I heard that we were signing him, I was really excited about it, because I thought this is a guy who's can still play at the level above for me. Can absolutely still play at the level above, and he's joined us. It hasn't cost us anything initially, and he's slotted straight in there as if he's been playing alongside that back six or whatever we're going to call it for the last 3 or 4 years. And here's a man, and I could have used this, my unpopular opinion this week, but I won't. I was going to say, if there was a situation where you were going to change club captains, then there is the man ready-made to be, even in this early days, you can see him lead throughout. And I think, Steve, he's going to prove an inspired purchase or recruitment, as he hasn't really cost us anything on the face of it.
Yeah, I agree with that, really. I mean, what I liked was in the first minute of the Coventry game, I could see him giving out orders already, and think to yourself, he's been here less than a week, and you could already see him trying to take some sort of control. I mean, you don't get that often. Sometimes you get with captains, they have to grow into it, they don't feel comfortable or whatever, but no, for him it was a case of, right, I'm here already now, and I'm going to start to get everyone to do things the way I think they should be done. And I really like that, to be honest. And I think that there has been some positives with him already, really, but I think the man who's given me real positives at the back, if I'm honest, is Mark Guehi. I think he's come on leaps and bounds, and he's only going to benefit from playing alongside Bennett. So I think there's definitely positives to be had. And if you think about it yesterday, really, it wasn't far off a clean sheet, was it? And obviously the only reason we have conceded is because of a laughable penalty decision, really. So I think that was encouraging as well, because obviously we'd had those clean sheets at the start of the season, but then we'd started to let a couple of goals in again. So although I know we haven't kept one yesterday, in theory we probably should have, and we did defend better. So that's a positive, I would say.
It's almost easy to forget about Mark Guehi's rise from what was a torrid start in the Swansea shirt, Guto, isn't it? Because up until lockdown, I remember thinking, how is this guy still in Chelsea's youth ranks? He's absolutely incapable of playing football. He had an absolute stinker in that horrible game at Hull as well, and I remember thinking, God, he's at fault for everything. Yeah, it's just really, really, really poor player. Since the lockdown, he seems to have swapped him out for someone else, because this Mark Guehi, as Steve said, is an absolute monster at the back. And welcome to comment as well on the arrival of Ryan Bennett, if you wish.
Yeah, I thought Bennett had a really good game again against Bristol City. Looks solid and comfortable already in the back five. But I thought Guehi was the star player, really. I thought he was our best player yesterday. He is just a colossus at the back. He's just athletically fantastic. His decision making is always spot on. He's good on the ball usually as well. And against Bristol City, I don't think he put a foot wrong. I think every single decision he made was spot on. And he must be one of the most difficult defenders to play against in the Premier League, because if you try to go long and chuck an aerial ball into the box, he is tall and strong enough to win those headers. But if you try to play along the ground, he's fast enough and shrewd enough to beat most players to the ball. And his reading of the game means he's always one step ahead of his opponent. He's just a fantastic all-round defender. I also thought Cabango had a good game on Saturday. His distribution was less wild and careless than it was in the midweek game against Coventry. Also, a word for Matt Grimes, actually, because I think he has taken a bit of stick so far this season. I don't think he's been fantastic so far this season, but I thought he was really good against Bristol City. His passing in an attacking sense was much better. Played his part in the goal. There was also a pass in the second half to release Ayew, which was a fantastic ball through the middle of the pitch, perfectly into the path of Ayew, and he wasted it really when I think it was Lowe had made a really good run into the box, and Ayew decided to go himself and it got blocked. But I thought Grimes had a really strong performance. Fulton too, coming into the team. I always feel with Fulton, when he comes into the team, he always tends to do a job. He's never going to be one of the most glamorous players in the division. He's never going to be one of the top performers. But he's pretty damn dependable, Fulton. He really is, and he's turned into a bit of an all-rounder as well. We tend to think of him as a defensive player, but he can contribute going forward as well. So yeah, I thought there were some definite positives to come out of that match, much more than the Coventry game, which we're going to be discussing in a bit.
Well, we are. We're going to go straight on to it now, actually, because they did follow a game in midweek against Coventry, the first of the two games. Cast your mind back a couple of days. It was the same scoreline, a 1-1 draw. This one with less positives to take from, I'm afraid, Steve. If anything, we absolutely robbed a point from there because I thought Coventry thoroughly deserved it. How, in the last 5 minutes, they didn't take all 3 points, and Lord only knows, because there was some frantic goal line defending there.
Yeah, we definitely got away with that on Tuesday night, didn't we? I mean, those chances at the end, as you say, there were 2 or 3 of them, really, weren't there? You just think to yourself, the gods may have been smiling on us. I mean, that free header, especially, I mean, I can't remember who that was. But you just can't believe that he's missed the target 6 yards out unchallenged, really. You just, I think if you're a Coventry fan, you'd be absolutely furious when you knew that he hadn't at least hit the target with that. So, I think we definitely got away with one there. And if we're honest, in general, the performance wasn't very good either, was it, really? So no. I think it was definitely far more of a point gained up there than it was on Saturday.
It was. Guto, the scoring started with Coventry taking the lead, and poor defending again. I think it was a misplaced pass in the middle that they broke with, and a cut back, and we didn't get out to the man quickly enough, and he slotted in bottom corner. Just poor all round, really, midfield and defence there for that opportunity to come. And as Steve said, you had that last 5 minutes where Coventry probably should have taken all 3 points, but the spoils were shared by what was a fantastic Andre Ayew goal.
Yeah, the only real moment of quality that we had in the entire game, I would suggest. I mean, the Coventry goal came after a very slow start by us. Coventry just looked sharper. They looked more up for it. They looked more organised. We really didn't have much of a shape, and we were so careless on the ball. I mean, our ball retention was just awful, and just sending long balls forward to the front three of Ayew, Lowe and Gyökeres, who again took a bit of flack for their performances against Coventry, but I don't think they were the problem, really, because they had some dreadful supply in that match. They were just spending the entire first half just battling for long balls, and you're thinking, Jesus, you've got to give these players a chance to do something, So I thought we were very weak in that sense, and midfield was totally overrun. I think it's fair to say Cooper got the team selection wrong at the start. It was always set up to go long and abandon the midfield, which played into Coventry's hands perfectly. But like you said, the goal was the one piece of quality that we really did produce. I mean, the through ball to Bidwell, really well worked, and Bidwell slides in and not only wins possession but manages to direct it back to Ayew, who then manages to keep possession and smash it into the bottom corner from a tight angle. It was a really, really good goal. But that was as good as it got. And watching that match, I mean, I thought, okay, finally we've scored against the run of play, but we've scored. Hopefully this will see things turn around, and it never did. I don't really think we looked like scoring after that, if I'm being honest. And as Steve mentioned, it was Coventry who created the chances after that. And I don't think 1-1 away at Coventry is that bad a result. But the performance was really bad. Definitely the worst that we've played this season so far. It just, there was no shape. There was no real plan. Nobody really stood out as having a very good game. I just thought it was a really bad night at the office, and one in which we were very lucky to get anything out of it.
Yeah, I think so. There's not really a great deal left to talk about on that game because there wasn't so many positives we could take from it. It may have led Cooper to play the sort of defensive side he played on against Bristol City, although, as we already said, his options were limited. I do feel, in a sense, Steve, that this is an example of what might have happened last season had we not been so lucky with injuries. Had Conor Gallagher picked up a lengthy knock, or Brewster. I mean, we saw yesterday with 3 defensive midfielders, but we were really short on options. Now we've got Casey Palmer was ineligible yesterday. We had Gibbs White who's out for a few months. It sometimes does, especially at this level, when you're trying to make every penny count and utilise the loan market as we are to save on finances. It really does come down to how lucky you can get with injuries sometimes as well.
Yeah, I think there's definitely an element of that, but it does show you as well that maybe you do need a plan B. Now, maybe not so much yesterday because we wanted to be a little bit more cautious against a side who've had a very good start to the season away from home. But, could we have gone to a back 4 and maybe done it that way? I don't know, because you're just thinking, you can't just play the same way necessarily all the time unless you've got all the players. I mean, if you've got injury issues, we've already seen, haven't we now, without Gibbs White, we're created nowhere near as many chances, and we were not creating a great deal before that. But it's now turned even worse. So that is a bit of a worry. So we're thinking if Palmer, for example, can't play, then maybe we need to do something a little bit different, because we're just not going to cause enough damage to the opposition, is how I'm looking at it. So maybe we should have, certainly if Palmer's not going to play this week now, should consider a change. But it seems to take a lot for Cooper to make a change. So I think we could be seeing this side for a little while now, and that means that on a Tuesday night a lot of us could be falling asleep before the end of the game.
I'm up for I've made no secret of the fact, Guto, that I'm a fan of the back 5. It allows the midfield 3 to be more adventurous. It allows them to get forward. If you have got the likes of Morgan Gibbs White in there, you can give him a bit more of a license, and Ayers and Lowe's then don't have to worry so much about covering any ground, because they'll just be loitering and around the penalty area, and obviously Gyökeres, if he is a man, to come off the bench as well. What I don't really buy into is a back 5 that is protected by a defensive 3, because then you've got 8 of your outfield players pretty much defending, which I think is a little bit overkill. And that's what I felt when I saw the team sheet yesterday. Didn't necessarily play out as badly as I expected, but the lack of ambition, perhaps, or the lack of option to do anything creative with that, just smacked out the team sheet for me when I saw it at 2:00.
Yeah, I don't think they did particularly badly considering their attributes, but there's no doubt that we're still missing a number 10, or just somebody in that midfield that can offer a bit of attacking impetus. I think Cooper tried to make Andre Ayew that man against Coventry, but he still played as a striker, which meant that we only had 2 men in midfield, which left us totally overrun. So that didn't work. Casey Palmer's the obvious answer. I've said before, I'm not his biggest fan, but he surely offers us more than what we've got at the moment. And it is an area of the pitch that we lack. I think our creative issues in midfield are probably our biggest problem. It speaks volumes that undoubtedly our most creative players this season, or at least our most potent attacking influences, have been our wing-backs, Bidwell and Roberts, who have either scored or set up all but one of Swansea's goals from open play this season. I'll offer a different view of the same point here, Guto, that the creativity issue is compounded by the fact that the 2 players you'd want to be creating their chances are left as the front men at the moment. And if we had a proven number 9 up there, a Ryan Brewster, if you like, then it would make the likes of Ayew and Lowe drop wider, drop deeper, pick up the ball and start making things from deeper. And there was an opportunity to be creative, as we saw towards the tail end of last season with Ayew and Brewster. We were creating a lot more. We were a lot more enjoyable to watch because we had that target man, if you like. We had that number 9 up there. You knew who was going to be relied upon for the goals. And Ayew's job then was to drop a little deeper, create havoc. We saw a few of his superb crossfield passes creating goals because he was in a position to drop deeper and make things happen. So yes, our issue definitely for me is creativity, but we potentially have players there to do it. We're just shoving them up front at the moment because we completely lack a striker that we can trust or rely on. And that's not my opinion. That's obviously Cooper's because of the way he's setting the team out. I'd actually argue that Lowe and Ayew aren't that creative, aren't that strong creatively, if I'm being honest. They're the kind of players that are always going to score more goals than they create for others. You know, last season did definitely play his part in creating goals for others, but he's not the type of winger that is going to really supply you with a string of really, really good balls into the box. I think when you look at his statistics over his career, his assists are always quite surprisingly low, in my opinion. So it's not as if he's a fantastic creator. And Lowe's the same. They're both kind of in between wingers and strikers. They're in that kind of grey area where they're not really typical wingers. They're not typical strikers. In that sense, they're quite similar to each other. So in that, I had this discussion with somebody earlier, actually. This idea that we play a front three, say, with Low one side, Ayew on the other, and somebody in the middle. I don't know how much that would actually accomplish. You'd still have a very narrow system, because neither Low nor Ayew would stick to the wide positions. They'd always want to come into the middle. And in terms of supplying killer passes into the box, it's not a particular strength of either Low or Ayew, in my opinion. We just don't have those kind of players to play that system. That's the reality for anybody who wants us to shift, even momentarily, into a kind of front three type system.
Yeah, no, fair point. I don't know. Has there been an update on the potential signing of Fabio Borini in the week? I'm not sure if there has.
Cooper said that didn't really say anything, did he? He said did he say something like transfers? He hasn't heard anything from above. So it seems to have gone quiet, doesn't it? I'm not convinced it's going to happen.
I feel like we're definitely a number 9 short of making a good go of it this season. Hopefully Gyökeres grows into the role as he gets more game time, if he gets more game time. And of course, let's not forget Liam Cullen, who's obviously a big talent from the youth team, seems to be starved of game time as well. Would like to see him be used if we are struggling for goals, which is clear we are, and see where it goes from there. But again, these decisions are made by the manager, and he seems to have his favourites, players that feature on the bench every week that very rarely get off. Right, let's move on and let's see how those games affected the prediction league table, gents. First of all, we'll go back to the Coventry game, in which, Guto, you predicted a 2-1 win. I predicted a 2-0 win. And Steve, you got it bang on. You predicted a 1-1 draw. So you've got some valuable points there in the league table. And Bristol City, Guto, you predicted a draw, but a 0-0 draw. Steve, you predicted a 2-0 defeat. And I got it bang on with a 1-1 draw against Bristol. So I know you're keen to know. The table's looking like this at the moment. Guto, you're now bottom of the table with 4 points.
Yay.
Sorry. Steve, you're just a point ahead. I pipped him at the moment with 5. And I'm up there with 10 at the moment. Can we end the season now? Because this is as good as it's ever been for me, and likely ever to get. So that's where we stand at the moment on the prediction league. We'll see how it goes. Now we'll talk about the games coming up at the end of the podcast and do our predictions for them. But those are the games done now. So let's get on to the fun middle part of the podcast that we brought in for this season. There's 3 parts to it. There's Unpopular Opinion, a quiz, and Battle Jacks. We'll start with Unpopular Opinion. It's my turn this week. I'm not sure how unpopular this is, but I'm going to give it a go anyway. Gents, I don't care, not even close to as much about football now that it's behind closed doors. And let me elaborate. I'm not just saying, oh, it's hard to get into it, it's hard to this, whatever. I feel myself not altogether that bothered. I mean, conceding the lead in the way that we did yesterday, if it was at the Liberty or if we were at Ashton Gate, whatever, and we'd been there to witness it, I'd have been sick. I wouldn't have want to watch TV last night. I would have still been pondering over it today. I'd have been cursing the ref and voodoo dolls, all a lot. I would have hated it. And yet, yesterday, I found myself kind of a bit like, that's annoying. And I moved on. And I'm really finding it hard to care that much this season. And obviously towards the end of last season was exciting because everything seemed to click together for us, but still the edge was off the Swans to me. I'm really not feeling the passion, the emotion has been drained from the game for me. I'm not even sure how unpopular it is, but that's my unpopular opinion this week. What do you think?
I'm not sure how unpopular that is. I'm still excited by it. I'm still watching. I'm probably watching more football than I have for years, if I'm being honest, because there's so much of it on TV. But I agree with you. Like when Bristol City scored yesterday, thanks to a very questionable penalty. I mean, at full time, I was like, oh, that's frustrating. But I think I've got a much more kind of take it or leave it attitude. But part of me thinks, is that because Swansea's football is more take it or leave it, perhaps? And if the Swans were actually playing really, really exciting football and we were winning every single game, I think I'd be a lot more excited than I am now. Probably still nowhere near as excited as I would be if I was actually going to matches and watching them live. But I'd probably get a little bit more excited than I was. And likewise, if the Swans were really, really bad, I think I'd be pretty angry as well. I would have been much angrier about yesterday's 2 points drop than I actually was. But yeah, I think I'm more serene about football these days than I was before, which is possibly a good thing.
It's weird, isn't it?
It probably wasn't good for my health. I think I've got probably a healthier perspective on football now than I did when I actually went to matches. My heart rate, I'd have loved to have seen what it was like before and seen what it's like now. It's probably much, much healthier.
I think your GP is pleased anyway, Guto, isn't he, that you've calmed down. But for me, I think it's not even about not being at the game, because think of any like away game. When I was watching it when the stadiums were open and you had fans in the stadium, and I was watching it from home, I'd be kicking every ball. I'd feel like I was getting angry, getting wound up, Steve. I was again feeling that feeling, even if I wasn't at the game and I was watching it via other methods, then I would still feel so involved and the emotion would be riding high, and I'm just not there. I'm not feeling it. And as Guto said, there is a more serene, a more standoffish kind of feel to it now. Maybe it is the fact that there's a detachment because there is no fans there. There's no involvement. It's just like watching pre-season friendlies. It's hard to build it up much more than that, Steve.
Yeah, there's definitely a detachment in there. I mean, if we, I was quite calm when we took the lead yesterday. I think if we were all there, we'd have all been jumping all over each other.
But even if you were watching it at home and it was a stadium full of fans, would you have had the same reaction? I think from my perspective, I'd have been more jumping up for joy, even if I wasn't at the game.
Yeah, I would. At home. Yeah, probably would. It's probably a gradual thing that's coming over time now, and it just feels a bit different. It's going to be interesting, I think, when we play Cardiff, because obviously that is the one game where obviously you're always more up for it than other games. And if what is the reaction going to be like for us all then? Are we going to, the nerves and stuff still going to be there as much as normal? And is it, it's difficult, isn't it? But I think a bit like Guto, I'm probably watching more football than ever just because you're stuck in the house more often. And if it's on, well, you just think, well, there's nothing else to watch, is there? So I'll stick it on. But there is a detachment from it. I think everybody probably feels the same thing. And it is going to be strange when we all probably go back when it eventually happens. But, it probably doesn't play on your mind as much. Like like that Brentford game. Like I think we were all gutted when we didn't get into the playoff final. And I think if we were all going and we'd been there, like you think for a few days afterwards probably would have been that bad, but I think within a day or two I was quite relaxed about it. So there's definitely it is definitely different, probably for the better in some ways, because it probably winds us all up too much, football. But it's still that's why everyone loves it so much, just because the highs are so big and the lows are so low. But I think at the moment it's neither of those things are true.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not, obviously, when I see I used to wait, obviously, when you wake up on a Saturday, home or away, whether you go to it or not, it's exciting. It's looking forward to the game. I'm just not feeling it. I don't know what it is. Well, I know what it is. I just don't know if that feeling is going to rush back into me as soon as stadiums to reopen, whenever that may be. But no, it's really struggling to feel the emotional attachment at the moment. So Guto, get your thinking cap on, because next week is your turn to give us. You've already told us who yours is going to be.
It's going to be a very unpopular opinion.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. It's going to be extremely unpopular.
I think you're going to break the glass ceiling of unpopularity, which will open the floodgates then to the rest of us who start saying things like rugby is better than football, and then we get on that chat then.
Anyone says that, it should be banned from listening to this podcast.
But I think Guto's is the floodgate opener, particularly on a Swansea City podcast. I'll say nothing else for now. We'll move on to the quiz, which this week I'm happy to tell you, Steve, has 5 questions, and I believe is correct.
Famous last words.
I can say. So, Steve, if you didn't listen to last week's, don't worry about it. Steve felt a little bit hard done by the fact that, I mean, I think this is picking holes, but the quiz is a question short, and one of the questions was wrong. I mean, I think that, you can't expect the quiz to be correct, can you? Just got to go with it. Guto wins and Steve has got sour grapes. Guto, that's all I'm seeing from it. I don't know about you. I think you won fair and square, no?
Agreed.
There we are. I agree. 2-1. That's fine. Democracy in action right there. Steve.
Yeah, but this country voted for the Conservative Party. Doesn't mean that those people are right, does it?
Aye, we're not getting political. Not on this one. We're going to go into the podcast, to the quiz, sorry. And as always, I think we discussed the scoring technique. It's taken us like 5 weeks to do this, but the scoring technique. Jump in with your name when you know the answer, or you think you know the answer. 2 points for a correct answer, -1 if you jump in and get it wrong. So, without further ado, question 1. How many different goal scorers have we had this season in the league?
Guto.
Go on then.
We had 5.
Correct.
Oh.
Well done. 5 different goals. Could you name them? No extra points.
The 2 strikers, Low Ayu, Gibbs White, Bidwell, and Cabango.
Correct. Yeah, that's right. So you've got that one correct. So 2-0 to you. Question 2. Swans will look to avoid a repeat of the Halloween horror show versus Stoke 4 years ago. Which 2 former players came back to haunt us?
Get the order.
Go on then, Steve.
Joe Allen and Wilfred Boney.
Yeah, correct.
Jesus, that's a bad memory.
I did say when we were chatting about this a little early on that a bad Stoke memory would be coming up in the quiz. Question 3. Naki Wells scored the contentious equaliser yesterday from the penalty spot. Who can name 3 of his former league clubs?
Steve.
Oh, Guto, just in time.
Bradford, Huddersfield, and Burnley.
Well done. Yeah.
Who's the other
2?
QPR?
He's played for Carlisle and QPR. Yeah.
Carlisle, did he? Yeah.
At the very early on. So well done. Guto, that's you again. So that's another 2 points. Just 4-2 to you at the moment. No incorrect answers. So far, I think the quiz is actually one of my better ones where I'm not putting incorrect information in there. This is one for you to jump in on if you're confident. Question 4. What position are Swansea and Cardiff in the league currently, respectively?
Steve.
Oh, go on then, Steve.
We're 6th. I think Cardiff are 15th.
Oh, well done. Just got in there. No quick Googling, no? No cheating.
No.
I
I was lucky I watched the Quest last night.
Yeah, you just got in there. Well, gents, it is neck and neck for all. This one is a who am I, as always. 3 points for it to get it first of all, but it doesn't matter. As long as you get it right now, you tip the other one to the post. So just get in there before the other one. Who am I? Fact 1. Former Welsh striker, played for us over the turn of the century. Fact 2, never played outside of Wales. His most famous moment came in a cup game for another... Steve?
Steve Walken.
It is Steve Walken. Oh, Guto, I feel gutted for you. Steve has got it right at the end there, Steve Walken. And would you got it on that one, Guto?
Possibly. I mean, once Steve said it, it was obvious. But yeah, possibly would have got it.
I can't even read what my third quiz question was on that. So thank God we didn't have to get there. Oh, yeah, I did. Never really a fan's favourite, but played over 200 times for our club. So there we go. Steve reclaimed your throne. Well, you're already on your throne because you were 2-1 up over the season. Well, that lead now has been extended to 3-1. Guto, it's always next week, mate. You can bounce back. I believe in you.
I've won one. That's good enough for me. I'm not going to get a big fat 0 at the end of the season.
So it's what you were worried about at the start of the quiz, isn't it? You're thinking this is going to be a whitewash. It's never going to be a whitewash now.
Yeah.
No one can take a controversial win off you.
Yeah, I've got to aim for Derby County's record now. That's the next.
Yeah, exactly. Right. We're coming on to the third part of our middle section of the podcast, which is Battle Jacks. I can't remember who won last week's one. I'm going to have a quick check on Twitter because I'm not sure.
Pretty sure it was Steve.
If it wasn't Steve, I'd be gobsmacked because Guto, you practically made his argument for him. Pretty sure you mentioned Cardiff being pro the idea was a good thing.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, do you know what? It wasn't that far off. You had 30% of the votes.
People didn't listen to the argument then.
Brilliant. Okay. So Battle Jacks this week. One has got to vote for, one of us got to vote against and argue the case for 45 seconds. If you're listening to this for the first time, it's not their genuine opinion, or maybe, but it's not necessarily their genuine opinion. They're forced to argue one way or the other, depending on the flip of a coin. So let's give you the fact first. Finishing lower than 6th this season has to be seen as failure. Guto, I think it's your turn to call heads or tails.
Tails again.
It's heads.
Oh my God, again?
Steve, would you like to vote for that or against it?
I'd probably say against, but I'm probably against.
Against. Okay then, Guto, as the one who lost the coin toss, I have to
argue that finishing below 6th would be a failure this season.
Has to be seen as a failure. Yeah. Let me just get the stopwatch going. Talk amongst yourselves. I'm not prepared. Right. Okay. 3, 2, 1.
This one's quite simple. The aim in football is always to do one better than you did last time, as far as I'm concerned. Last year we finished 6th, good finish, but we've got to at least equal that this year for it to be a successful season, in my opinion. This is a team that is capable of getting into the playoffs. I don't think there's anything that's really stopping them from getting into the playoffs, and therefore anything below the playoffs would be a failure. I think it would be a big disappointment, especially since much of our transfer dealings, they've been good. We've brought in quality across the pitch. Yes, we've lost Rodon and we've lost a couple of the key loan players, but we have strengthened. Steve Cooper has been able to bring in his own kind of players to further strengthen us and to further cement our position as promotion candidates.
There we go. Good solid argument there to start us off by Guto. Steve opted to go for against this. So Steve, make your point in 3, 2, 1.
I think last season was a lot of overachievement. I don't think our necessarily best 11 is as good this year. Obviously, we've lost the likes of Joe Rodon. We do have a better squad, I must admit, but there's a lot of anomalies this season. I mean, playing without crowds, I think a lot of the relegated clubs are going to be better this season than they were last because they haven't lost as many players. You know, I think we're a club that's not really spending a lot of money. You know, the manager has been backed within reason, but he's not been backed in terms of money. So he's had to try and be clever in terms of trying to bring players in. It's not been easy. I don't think top 6 failing to make it would be a failure, to be honest with you. I think that with our financial issues, the most important thing is that our club still remains to be debt free, and we want to make sure that we don't overstretch ourselves.
There we go. That's quite a close one this week, actually. I think it was quite an interesting one. Maybe I'm making them a little bit in the middle now, rather than making a ridiculous statement that one of you has to argue against. We'll see how it pans out. That's going to be posted up on Twitter as a little segment by Dan when he edits the podcast up, and give you the opportunity, as ever, to vote for whose opinion you think held more valid. Not what you believe, but who's made the better argument over 45 seconds there. So do get in touch, let us know, vote on the poll, which will be appearing on Twitter shortly, and keep up to date with us. Right, let's move on now. That was the middle section. The quiz is gone and out of the way. We'll see how they pan out over Twitter. Let's move on to the games now coming up, and it starts with a game against Stoke. We got 2 home games now, gents. We got Stoke on Tuesday, and then we have Blackburn on Saturday. Mentioned in the quiz there, Guto, the horror show around Halloween, when we played them last time around Halloween, was obviously that was at Stoke, but still kind of scorched on the memory. In fact, every game against Stoke in living memory is scorched on that memory. I feel like I just hate them. I just cannot remember a positive feeling I've had. And it's mainly because, truth be told, we haven't got a great record.
I think I despise Stoke even if we didn't have such an awful record against them. They are a very easy club to dislike. But, I mean, our record against them is woeful. I mean, we've played them every single season for, I think this is the 10th consecutive season that we will have been in the same league as Stoke. And in all the times that we've played them before in this decade, I think we've won 5 of them. But I think we've lost 5 of our last 6 meetings. And there's always something with Stoke that just adds salt to the wound. It's never just a straight defeat. Either there is some kind of either it's a massive match, so defeat feels so much more painful, or there's some real controversy, and it never ever goes our way with Stoke. It's always in their favour. Thinking of the Joe Allen offside goal, dodgy penalty decisions, failed red cards, which the referee hasn't given. There have been so many incidents over the years between the Swans and Stoke. But mainly it's just down to the fact that no matter how well the Swans are playing, no matter how badly Stoke are playing, they always seem to stop us. They always seem to find a way of beating us, or at the very least not losing to us. And the scary thing about this week's encounter is that whereas usually the Swans go into it in superior form or playing the better football, actually on this occasion it's probably Stoke that are doing it. They've just beaten Brentford 3-2, which is a heck of an achievement. Michael O'Neill, their manager, is somebody that I think everybody has to admire for what he did with Northern Ireland, and he does seem to be getting a tune out to that team. They seem to be getting it right, finally, after years of doing everything wrong.
It's hard to quantify the Stoke effect, Steve. It's a team that has James McLean playing for them, who's a thoroughly likeable gentleman, of course, and at the same time, when you see the likes of Joe Allen going to play there, Wilfred Borney, when he was still very well thought of in these parts, not that he is now, of course, going to play there. And then the flip side of the coin, the likes of Sam Clucas going to play there and having a worldie against us. It does seem to be, it seems to be this Bermuda Triangle of a club where any old shit that goes on, it's just negative, and chuck anything into that melting pot and it comes out against the Swans. You can have our best ex-players go there, they'll do well against us. You can do our shit ex-players go there, do well against us. Controversy, as Guto said, we've had penalties given against us for chesting the ball. We've had the opposition diving, getting penalties. We've had terrible decisions over many years, and yet it seems never ending. Last season it was they were cast away towards the bottom of the league. Nathan Jones was on his last legs. He was going to be sacked at full time until they inexplicably beat us down here. So it seemed that anything that happens against Stoke, you can throw the phone book out the window if it means that we would lose the game, because we will inevitably lose the game. And it's sad to say that this time Stoke actually probably go into it thinking they probably can beat us rather than hope they can beat us, because as Guto said, they've come off the back of a very good win themselves.
Well, there's just all sorts of stats to do with Stoke. I mean, there was that I know someone put up a tweet last year that when they beat us at our place, they'd only had 9 wins or something in 3 years away from home, and I think 3 of them had been at our place, or at least 2 of them had been at our place. And you're just thinking stuff, how can we, do that? I suppose there have been some reasonable memories against Stoke. Do you remember under Michael Laudrup, we scored that amazing team goal with de Guzman and beat them comfortably? There was that crazy period, wasn't it, where Clement made the worst sub of all time, Van der Oorn for Llorente, and they got that penalty, didn't they? And then what else was there? Then there was the game where we played Stoke, and then we obviously when Dan James had that stormer, wasn't it? So then there are actually some reasonable ones. But yeah, the bad ones stand on more, don't they? The last minute penalty with Routledge and the handball, the diving up there for the penalty. I think Stoke away is just such a miserable away game for anyone that's been. I can't believe anyone will disagree with that. Just so exposed, always bloody cold. There's nothing round there. Oof, just Stoke. Like I said, last year, those 6 points they had against us arguably kept them in the bloody division. So we could have sent those dickheads down out of the way. Would have been great. But of course, we don't do that, do we?
It's bizarre, isn't it? Because as Guto said, it's just 10 years now where we followed them. We joined the Premier League after them, and we both spent 7 years up there after that point and came down together. So we couldn't even get rid of them by being relegated. And last season looked like they were going to get relegated again and survived. So this seems to be an ongoing thing. And it's a matter of time, Guto, before Stoke versus Swansea gets recognised nationally as a rivalry, because they don't particularly, I think, have very fond opinions of us either.
Well, this is the weird thing with Stoke, though. They have rivalries with everyone. Like, Stoke think they've got like a rivalry with Arsenal. They think they've got a rivalry with Man United. They think they've got a rivalry with Leeds. They think they've got a rivalry with Cardiff. So like every single team the Stoke play against, they think, it's always a bit tasty.
It's always them.
It's always tasty when we play against Carlisle, and you're like, that's because you're awful and you're just horrible club to play against, and everybody hates playing against you. Like, it's like
you got the Millwall factor, haven't they?
It is. Whenever Millwall go anywhere, it's going to be a horrible, horrible experience. And whenever Stoke play against you, it's going to be a horrible, horrible experience. And it's always the same. And for Swansea, though, more than anybody, it's a particularly horrible one for us. I mean, you only have to look back at last season's fixture, at the Liberty. We've gone into that game in quite good form. They had not won any of their opening 10 games. They'd only picked up 2 points. They just lost against Huddersfield, who were also, just hopeless cases like them. And we took the lead after a minute, and you think, this is going to be a really good afternoon. This is when we really pay them back for all that pain over the years. And what do? They absolutely play us off the park and win 2-1. And I think actually that match was quite possibly the most painful one that we've had against them, because it's one of the few occasions where they've actually beaten us fair and square, and you can have no complaints whatsoever, and you just have to say, hey, Stoke were better than us. We had no kind of dodgy refereeing decisions to fall back on, no kind of major controversies or anything like that. We weren't, they didn't win it against the run of play or anything. They absolutely destroyed us despite being bottom of the league. And it's just typical, really, of the kind of relationship that we have, where we absolutely hate playing against Stoke just because they always find a way of beating us.
it's an interesting way, and maybe something to discuss in greater detail in another podcast. But how you said there that it was the most painful because they beat us fair and square. Now, personally, my thing is if we lose the game we deserve to lose, like Coventry, for example, where we drew and we deserve to lose, I wouldn't have come away with that. I'd have felt annoyed at Cooper, etc., had we lost the game, but felt like justice was served on the day. Similarly to how the game went at the Liberty last season against Stoke. A refereeing decision boils my piss for a week. It really does. It annoys me, and which was weird about yesterday that I don't feel that way, and I explained in the Unpopular Opinion as to why that was. But when a team beats us and they deserve to beat us, and you can look inward and say, wrong choice of team, wrong tactics, etc., we look inwards and we can do better. But when a ref inexplicably makes a horrendous mistake, which a whole week of planning, hard work, being the better team, 75% possession, and the ref gives a handball, the one at the Liberty when we come back from, was it 2-1 down to go 3-2 up?
That was a painful one.
That
was Rob Needley, wasn't it? The ref that
I had chest pains after that one. I thought this could be a Tony Petty fans running on the pitch to get into the director's box moment, because at that point the East End was so absolutely annoyed, and I think all 11 Swans players were as well. But no, for me anyway, it's just it's weird because I think that when I watch a Swans game, I almost go into it thinking, if we're going to lose, please don't let it be an inexplicably bad refereeing decision, because there's nothing you can do about it. You can't plan for it, you can't prepare for it, and you've just got to suck it up, and refs get off scot-free week in, week out because there's just so few of them. Massive tangent there, apologies. But Steve, as we were discussing a little bit earlier on, Stoke come into it in good form, and dare I say, this game will hopefully not be decided by a refereeing decision.
Yeah, hopefully not. As you say, they've picked up, haven't they, Stoke? I know yesterday it looks like it was a close one against Brentford, but if you delve a bit deeper, they were 3-0 up. And one of the goals for Brentford was in injury time, so it was more comfortable than the scoreline suggests, really. So that's obviously a very good win. Yeah, they seem to have got their act together a bit, don't they? And obviously, you know, as you've already alluded to, Sam Clucas is there. I think Joe Allen isn't far off fitness yet. I think Therese Campbell has been doing quite well for them. He's a forward player. But they seem to have, maybe finally clicked a little bit, because it's been strange with Stoke, isn't it, since they've been relegated. You look at the side that they've got and you're thinking, well, how have they struggled so much? But obviously there must be more to it than meets the eye, because I think on ability, certainly when they first came down anyway, they had better players than the league position suggested. But maybe now they're finally getting somewhere. But which is not great for us, because they never need an invitation to take points off us.
But this could be the turning point, Steve. I mean, you look at it. Yeah, they have got Michael O'Neill, who isn't a dislikable manager in himself, and
his team is playing grim football, though, or Northern Ireland is, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And also, of course, they did us that humongous favour on the final day of last season by trouncing Nottingham Forest, which was.
Oh, they're the type of team, though, that if they found out they were doing us a favour, would have conceded.
They would have thrown it. I think they would have. Do you really?
I wouldn't surprise me with Stoke, because you think, you could have gone in there, but they probably looked at us and thought, well, we don't want Swansea going up. We always do well against them.
In fairness, though, it was so Stoke that they had absolutely nothing to play for in that match, and then they still thought, you know what, we're going to raise our game just to ruin another club's playoff hopes, just to dash that club's dreams. We're gonna really raise our game for this occasion. That is typical Stoke.
Yeah, you'd have expected us to have been on the wrong end of that. The winner was like, Stoke, why do you care so much?
Who were we? My mind's gone completely blank. Who were we playing?
Reading.
No. I'm on about when we were getting relegated, and we were playing against someone at home who had nothing to play for, and they wanted us to beat them as well, because was it Stoke? It was Stoke, wasn't it? And Stoke beat us.
Yeah, just because they wanted Mark Hughes to go down.
They wanted Mark Hughes to go down at Southampton. They wanted us to beat them. They had nothing to play for, and we had, because they were already down. And
that was a weird day.
So there's 20,000 plus fans, all of both teams in the stadium, wanted a Swansea win, and Swansea contrived to lose.
That was such a weird day. Weirdly, I quite enjoyed that day. We were already relegated, so like there was no pressure on the game. But what a weird atmosphere! Really was.
Do you remember? I remember us singing like "We Want 7" or something like that, and Stoke fans joining in. It was a goal difference because Man City were playing Southampton, and they could have easily got 4 or 5 in the form they were in. So we were like, well, if we beat these 3-0, we could stay up on goal difference. And we went 1-0 up, and I thought, yeah, we could do this. Let's keep going at them. Let's get 3 or 4, put the pressure on Southampton against. And the capitulation was monumental. That is prime Swansea versus Stoke for me. That goes in there because it's just so pointless, and Stoke had nothing to play for, and we still couldn't beat them. Exactly what Nottingham Forest will feel like, by the way, or the last day of last season, where they thought, well, how the hell have we managed to lose so heavily to these? It's Stoke. How can you preview a game against Stoke? Let's hope, Guto, if we delve back into the archives, that it isn't like the last time we played them around Halloween time, because that was a particularly sore moment, and it was just after the takeover, I believe, as well, wasn't it?
Do you know what? I remember that was particularly painful for me because it was a Monday night, and I was travelling up to Stoke to go watch that game. And my car just started, tons of smoke just started coming out of my car. Broke down on the M50, I think, on the way up there, and had to wait for ages for somebody to come and pick up my car, take me back home. And I got back just in time to watch us lose 3-1 with goals from Wilfred Boney and Joe Allen. That was a thoroughly miserable evening. On that's ignoring the cost of repairs to the car.
Lesson learned: don't go to Stoke.
True.
Genuinely, don't support the Swans.
The one thing I will say is, I for some reason, when I was just starting going out with my wife, I thought, I'll introduce her to football. See if she'll get into it. I'll introduce her to the Swans, and I took her to Stoke away. Why on earth? I thought, I know.
How was it last
day out in Stoke-on-Trent? It was. But in fairness, that was probably our best experience at Stoke in recent memory, because it was the game where we were 2-0 down and came back to draw 2-2. And it was a really good day, actually, because we were losing 2-2 and came back to draw. Sadly, she never ever got the bug. She never ever fell in love with the Swans. I guess a day out in Stoke-on-Trent doesn't give you that love of football, does it?
It's not Paris, mate, is it? You're not taking away an romantic weekend to Stoke, are you?
No, it's not.
I was going to say no disrespect, but I don't even care. At the end of the day, Swans fans aren't big fans of Stoke, and I'm sure, as I've seen elsewhere online, that they're not the same the other way. I can understand the whole Arsenal-Swansea thing, because they're both teams that have been traditionally very good, pretty on the eye footballing teams that perhaps have a slight soft underbelly, and teams like Stoke traditionally have got into that, roughed them up and got the result, and it's ugly but it's effective. So I can get the Arsenal-Swansea one. I absolutely agree, though. They seem to pick rivalries with everyone, and if it's more than 2 or 3 clubs, you've got to start looking inward and thinking it's actually you that's the problem. Score predictions for this one's then, gents. It is Stoke at home. Our predictions have been quite decent this season. Our home form hasn't necessarily been very good for quite some time. But Guto, how do you see this one panning out?
2-0 to Stoke.
Positive. 2-0 to Stoke, okay. Steve?
I'm going to say 0-0.
0-0. I'll go for, just to break the Stoke duck, I'm going to go for a 1-0 home win, which I actually feel extremely unconfident about this week. But we didn't actually do 2 predictions last podcast. We posted them online. Do you want to predict the Blackburn game, or shall we just look ahead to it and do a bit of analysis, Steve?
Probably just look ahead to it, I would say, and do the prediction later in the week.
Right, okay, so they've got a game coming up, but they did just win on the weekend, a heavy defeat for Coventry. They won 4-0 there, Blackburn. The team where we barely managed to draw against in midweek. So they're coming off the back of that very good win, Guto, and find themselves just in the top half of the table at the moment, and maybe feeling like this season could kick on from there.
Yeah, in fairness, Blackburn were down to 10 men for a lot of that game.
Coventry,
Coventry, sorry, were so that did help them. But in fairness, Blackburn don't really need much help to score goals. No. Every time I look at the Championship table, I'm these days I'm surprised that Blackburn aren't higher, because they've had some really, really eye-catching results. But basically, if they take the lead in a game, they do not hold back. They've only won 3 games this season, but they've won them 5-0, 4-0, and 4-0. So if they score first against us next week, we need to start praying for mercy, because they just do not hold back. And they are one of the teams, I think, they've got real potential to do something this season. They didn't quite have it last season. They just fell short in the final stages, couldn't sustain a playoff push. But this year, I mean, they've got the players to do it. They've bought well. They've got some really good players in their team. I mean, Adam Armstrong is a player that has always threatened to be a really good player at this level, and this season he is just banging them in non-stop. They've got Elliott on loan from Liverpool, who looks a really, really exciting loan prospect. They've just signed Barry Douglas from Leeds. They've just got quite a few very interesting players in their team, the kind of players that you really enjoy watching playing football. And Tony Mowbray, in fairness to him, his teams do tend to play entertaining football. They do tend to play very attack-minded football. I think it's going to be a very, very difficult game next week.
Steve, 16 goals as the time of recording in 7 games for Blackburn, far and away the top goal scorers in the league so far this season. It's going to be a real test for this back line, isn't it? Let's say Bennett's come in and has looked really good. He's stepped up and the system looks settled with them at the back. But this is going to be another test with a free scoring Blackburn team.
Yeah, I think, as Guto has said, really, I mean, Tony Mowbray's sides have always been quite attacking. I remember when he was at West Brom years ago, I think they went up from the Championship. We are talking a long time ago now, Mike, but I think they were always a side that would have a go, and it's been similar at the other clubs he's managed, really. So I think it is going to be a tough one for us. I know Adam Armstrong I think he scored a couple for them yesterday. They're not a bad side, Blackburn. I think they're probably a little bit too inconsistent, is what has been the case in the last couple of years. Like they'll probably win games they wouldn't expect, but then they'll lose games that they would have hoped to have won, and that probably holds them back a bit. I think they were, when we went into the lockdown, it was one of the last games, wasn't it, before football was paused. I remember we conceded late on up there, didn't we, to draw 2-2, and it's probably one of those games where you look back and where, obviously, we did get in the playoffs, but both sides would probably think they could have won it or could have lost it. So I think that's sort of probably been Blackburn's problem since they've come back into this division from League One. I think it's just like us, it's their 3rd season in there. So they're not a bad side. They can definitely cause us problems. I think it's probably a good thing for us in some ways, because we always seem to struggle against the sides that maybe a little bit more cautious against us. So I think they'll come down here and they won't be as cautious as a lot of other sides, and hopefully it'll mean that it'll be a better game than some of the other ones we've seen.
So we're only going to predict for the Stoke game, so we're going to do a prediction for this, but in a general, in essence, if you like, think it. Obviously, we were looking ahead to 2 away games last podcast and saying, well, that might work in our favour. We only managed to get 2 points from them. Do you see a better return over these 2 games, albeit one of them is our nemesis in Stoke?
I think if we get 2 points from these games, we'll have done well. I mean, we're in the middle of a really difficult run of games at the moment, aren't we? I think our next 4 opponents are in the top half of the table, roughly around where we are in the league. They're all they're all dangerous sides who you do well to get 3 points against. I think it is going to be a tricky period for us, if I'm being honest. And if we can get 2 points in these games, I think we will have done very, very well, because Stoke are in fine form, and Blackburn have shown that they can, they are capable of getting really good results, and they've shown as well that they can get good away results as well. They beat Coventry 4-0 away. I think they beat Derby 4-0 away as well. So it's not as if they're they're too shy when they leave Ewood Park. I think we're going to have a difficult week ahead of us. And anything we can get out of these games will be a decent result, really.
Okay. Steve, what do you think?
2 points. We've got to be looking to win one of these games, I think, really. I mean, we've got 2 home games on the bounce. If we don't win one of them, it's going to be quite frustrating, isn't it? I mean, obviously, we haven't had a win this week. We'd be up to 5 without a win then, wouldn't we? So, I think we've got to be targeting, 4 points, really, from these 2 games, ideally. If we don't get at least 3, it's going to be a disappointing week. And then you're looking after that, I think we've got Brentford away and Norwich away. They're going to be difficult games, if we're being realistic. So we could really do with a win in this week. So I think if we don't get a win, it'll be a disappointing week.
Do you see Cooper? It never does. So it seems like a redundant question now. But do you see Cooper changing it up at all? I guess the only real question is whether Casey Palmer walks back into this team as he's eligible to be selected. Guto, anything else you see on the fringes coming into this team?
I think Palmer's the obvious one, isn't he? Because that is the position where we're really lacking that creative element in the team. Mind you, the games are coming so thick and fast. We could see a few players getting brought in as well, just to mix things up a bit, just to give players a rest, etc. So we may see a few players go. The question is, if Palmer does come into the team, who does he come in for? Is he going to come in for one of... I mean, you can't see Grimes being dropped just because he's captain, but then it comes down to Fulton or Smith, which one of them loses their place? Or is he even going to drop somebody like Jamal Lowe? I can't see that happening after Lowe found the back of the net against Bristol City. But I think that's the big decision he's got to make. Does he play Palmer? And if so, who does he replace? But I'd really like to see him make that decision, because I do think we lack that creativity and that attacking instinct in midfield, really, and it does just hold us back a bit.
Anything you can expect, Steve? I mean, I admire Guto's optimism about potentially seeing a few changes. I think we Dennis generally see that very often with Cooper. Tired legs or not, Cooper is very keen on his team, isn't he? And I'm not sure. I think for my money, Fulton would be the one to drop. He seems to have a lot of faith in Corey Smith and Jamal Lowe as well. So I think he's going to probably make that straight swap. As with you, I do think that will probably be the extent of it. But Steve, do you see anything different?
I'm not convinced we're going to see many changes. Palmer's the only one I can see, really. But I do actually think we should maybe consider making 3 or 4 changes. Yeah. Not necessarily because people have played badly, but you just look at it now. It's such a hectic period of 7 games in 21 days. The majority of the players have played all 3 games. And I'm just thinking, can we put Manning in or Norton? Can Gyökeres come back in? That's how I'm looking at it, really, because I just think if we don't, by the end of this spell, we're going to see tired players. I felt there were 1 or 2 that were tired yesterday, for example. So I think that we do need to make more use of the squad, to be honest with you. So I don't think he's going to do it, but I think he should.
Yeah. We'll all be interested to see, because his hand may well be forced, as you've both alluded to, with regards to the fixture list, this incredible schedule this year with a reduced season. So he's going to have to eventually make some changes, isn't he? But we'll see if it comes this week. So that's about it from us then. We'll do the prediction for Blackburn in the week after Stoke, so probably go up Wednesday, Thursday night on Twitter. So keep an eye out for that. Of course, you want to keep in touch. You want to see if my lead gets extended in the league table. I get it. I get lots of fan. I don't. I'm joking. Of course, we'll keep everything up to date. The podcast will be coming. Snippets of this will be coming online as well on Twitter, so keep an eye out for that, because there'll be polls and opinions going up on there. And fingers crossed, in the coming weeks we will be returning to our spiritual home on Podbean, and get available on all your podcast downloaders, iTunes, etc. All fully downloadable again and subscribable as you're used to with us. We appreciate and understand that it's been difficult the last few months just getting us off streaming websites. So we're going to look to get that sorted sooner rather than later. Spread the word. We're looking for someone to sponsor and to put the advert at the top and tail of the show. Looking to do that so that we can afford to go on those on back onto Podbean and get everything back up and running on there. So that's it from us anyway. From myself, Steve, and Guto, thank you very much for listening. Keep in touch, keep in tune, and we'll be speaking to you next week. Cheers.